Ecclesiastes, lesson 2. Oh, this is what I was afraid of. Okay. Internet might be a little slow because of the rain. But our last lesson, we went over chapters 1 and 2. So we're in 3 through 5 now. And kind of did like who was our author, and kind of started laying down some tracks as far as structuring. And our chapter theme was, for chapter 1, was vanity of vanities, futility of futilities. All is vanity. There is nothing new under the sun. And the works of men under the sun are vanity and striving after the wind. And then we see, so Solomon is kind of like introducing the subject. And the title of the study is Life Under the Sun, meaning life on earth, life under heaven. So we see life under the sun, life under heaven. He never says life on earth, but that's what he means, is life on earth, life in the world. There's a lot of cross references that we could draw in, as far as like from James, about the world. So if you're friends with the world, you're at enmity with God. And we see here where Solomon, he says, I magnified and increased in wisdom. And so we identified the author as Solomon. We read about his life in First Kings before we came into the study. And we see that like he did all of these things. He was commissioned. David was like, follow God, follow God, follow God, obey God, obey God, obey God. And Solomon just didn't. And so then it's like, okay, whenever God came to him, and he saw God twice, whenever God came to him, God talked to him twice, and said, hey, what do you want? And he asked for wisdom so that he could rule his people well. And God liked that. And we see Solomon started out well, and then everything just kind of went south in his life. He started acquiring, you know, fame and wealth and concubines and this and that, and then the wives and the concubines and their false gods, he started, worshiping their gods, built temples to them and things like that. So it just really, it's kind of like what we were talking about before we logged on. It's like one thing leads to another. Like you kind of dip your toe in the water, next thing you're all in. And that's what happened with Solomon. So then we see in Ecclesiastes that he's just talking about all these things that he did. It's just all futility, vanity of vanities. And I think this is also a writing that it's kind of good to go and look at some of the other translations, so to speak. I don't know what Farag is reading from whenever I'm listening to his sermons on it. It might be the New King James, because I think that's what he primarily uses. And some of the words are different and kind of makes a little more sense in some ways. So I think this is a good one to utilize, that tool of going to the different translations and seeing how they translate some of the words. And then we see where Solomon says that he tested himself with pleasure, that, he'd go through everything that he amassed, everything that he built, and that he came to the assumption that all of his activities were vanity and striving after the wind. And he comes to this conclusion that the wise man and the fool die alike. And what does a man get in all his labor? And then he comes to the conclusion that who can eat and have enjoyment without him, meaning God. So futility of futilities, striving after the wind. All my activities were vanity. And chapter theme, then I hated the fruit of my labor. So we're gonna see his writing is very cyclical. Like he started out, he introduced us to the main theme, um, of life under the sun, and it's all futility. And then the works of men under the sun are vanity and striving after the wind. And um, as I was going through this and picking my paragraph themes and my chapter themes, and I don't think I fully got to five. I was like, oh, because this is very human with Solomon, as far as these questions and seeing these things and these incongruencies and these unfairness and this, and it's kind of like, well, this is how it is, um, and this kind of very human thinking where some of these conclusions, so to speak, um, aren't necessarily things like truths about God or the things that God put in place. God put in place was in the garden, and then we messed it up. And so all these things that we see that Solomon is talking about is because sin entered the world. It's not because God said, yeah, okay, well, I'm going to make up the system that's going to be totally unfair and you're just going to have to live in it. That's not it. What Solomon is seeing is the result of our sin. And he gets these truths in there. He comes to truth, but a lot of this we have to remember that this is Solomon talking it out, with himself, and getting to the conclusion of truth. All scripture is God breathed, and so whenever you're pulling out your chapter themes and your paragraph themes, you start getting God's truth of the works of men under the sun are vanity and striving after the wind. The works of men. So we get into our works versus God's works. And then I hated the fruit of my labor. Well, of course we hate the fruit of our labor because it's just it's not of God. Um, we love the fruit of His labor. If it's of God, we love it. We're satisfied. And so this truth is coming out. Now Solomon has this is life without God is futility, is the theme that he's getting to. So Solomon is coming to the truth that through all this thinking, but then God you know in his omniscience, in his he has this string of truth coming through in the paragraph and the chapter themes, which is really just amazing. um so and especially I started seeing it with these chapters. So chapter 3 starts off, and this is read at every funeral, right? Well, not every funeral, but and when you get into it, you're like, ooh. But there is an appointed time for everything, and there is a time for every event under heaven. A time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to shun embracing, a time to search and a time to give up as lost, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear apart and a time to sew together, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. All right, insights.
Um, that I kind of think this is a little bit of a turning point. I had to go back and read chapter 2 because I missed last week, but now he's changing to a little bit more about God and God is sovereign. And so I feel like this right here, where he's saying is that life is not random, that it's a plan, it's everything in God's plan. Every season has a purpose and a plan from a sovereign God. It's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah. Um, I mean, definitely. Uh, yeah. It's there, and that's why this is read at funerals. There's a time for this, time for that, and stuff like that. But whenever you get into the nitty gritty of it, it's like, ooh, okay, there's more to it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and so whenever you look at this, I'm gonna go in here and because in your observation worksheets, it looks more like this. And she asked you to kind of look at those parallels. So, like a time to give birth and a time to die. So, you have a beginning and an end, and then a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. So, you have a beginning and an end. And so, she asked you to look at the congruencies there.
Oh,
And
yes. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the analogies of the same thought. Um, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up. So it's like an analogy, a parallelism. And, like weeping, a time to weep, and we have a time to mourn. So those are the same things, and a time to laugh and a time to dance. There's those analogies. Like if you were, if we scrambled these up and said, "Hey, make an analogy, but what matches up? This is what would match up." So he's using that parallelism in here. There's something much deeper, and yes, God appoints times, but this goes back to that everything is cyclical.
Hmm.
Like and it's like it's almost like the good you have the good and the bad, and it's just there. Like you have this good thing and then you have this bad thing, and then it kind of cancel, and it's all just cyclical, and it's all just mundane, and it's just monotonous, and it's just
Every season has a place. I mean,
mm-hmm.
yeah, cycle. It happens.
Yeah, but it's going back to that, and if you look, it's like Solomon's going through this pattern. It was like, yeah, okay, the river flows here and it flows there, and the wind goes here, and and it's just like cyclical. He's going back to the mundaneness of life.
Yeah.
It's just cyclical. Um,
Reflection. He's
yeah,
he has to be looking back, going, okay, this is how it was.
yeah, like yeah, and you kind of get into this like, okay, well, yeah, and he's basically talking about all the things that stink. Like, there's no joy here. Um, it's just like, ugh. Um, but yeah, so he's kind of just going back to that you know it's kind of being a downer in some ways.
Well, because we're under the sun, under heaven, so we're not above
Right, exactly.
earth.
And yeah, and this one, and this is just an interesting aside because I was like, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones. It's like, what is this about? Because I was like, that doesn't make any sense with a time to embrace and a time to shun embracing. But it had to do with they would actually throw stones into their enemies' fields. So it would
Oh,
make it hard for their enemies to, farm and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes more sense with a time to embrace and a time to shun embracing. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, so I was like, oh, okay. Um, so I just have there is an appointed time for everything, and I put that in there. I mean, that's kind of the main theme of what he's saying. And I didn't really put anything in there as far as, I mean, yeah, he's just talking about the mundaneness, the routineness of life. But you start developing with the paragraph themes and the chapter themes this underlying truth, even through Solomon's human meanderings and musings that pops up. It says, "What profit is there to the worker from that in which he toils? I have seen the task which God has given the sons of men with which to occupy themselves. He has made everything appropriate in its time. He has also set eternity in their heart. Yet, so that man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning, even to the end." Insight.
So I kind of went and looked at appropriate, which came back to beautiful, pleasing, or fitting. It's kind of the words that I got for that. Um, and then I have seen God's task. So it's like eternity is in our hearts, but but the complete plan we still don't really understand. I mean, it's like eternity in our hearts is God made us knowing there was eternity. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why we can't really get fulfilled with anything but. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Um, so it's like it's eternity in his heart, but yet a lot of it is still beyond our understanding, of
Mm-hmm.
course. So so yeah, so I just had God made us with an awareness of something eternal,
Yep.
yet we live in a world with temporary seasons and we still don't completely understand. It's kind of my ramblings, but that's kind of how what I got out of it.
Yeah. So it's time versus eternity.
Yeah.
We're born into time. It's the infinite versus the finite, and the finite can't understand the infinite. Um, and she gave us some cross references as far as my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts um, than your thoughts. And then the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our sons forever. That way, we may observe all the words of this law. Um, yeah, and so we see Solomon here. He's like, "What profit is there to the worker from that which and he toils?" He's back to like, there's no profit in any of this. And he says, "I've seen the task which God has given the sons of men with which to occupy themselves." And it's like, okay, back to the garden. It's like,
Yep.
back to the garden, Solomon. What you are seeing is because of man's sin. That's why you're unhappy. Um, and then he has made everything appropriate, beautiful, um, in its time. In its time. There's a time for this, a time for that. When will there be a time that everything is beautiful and complete?
Eternity.
Yep. And he has also set eternity in their heart. So, yes, he's set eternity in every man's heart. Now, there are people that they believe that when you die, this is it. Like, that's it. It's just it. And I don't know how they get there, but it's like, well, why would you even anyway? But most people talk about an afterlife. Most people most people there is an afterlife. It's just people have a different afterlife than what the Bible says. But he has put eternity into our hearts to where we know that there's something beyond. Like everybody knows. And everybody honestly knows that there's something higher than them. It's
Yes.
just they choose to just ignore it.
Live in the flesh, go
Yeah.
balls to the walls or whatever, and just do what they want to do because they don't, yeah, they, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Like, yeah, no, it's just it's yeah. But this is definitely like infinite versus finite. God doesn't live in time, so we can't understand it. We can't understand um everything. Like, but also it's like he's told us the work he's doing from
I
the
kind of,
beginning.
I went up and down that a little bit. And then it's like, you go back to you're created. So you are created by the creator and you're not created to be temporary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're created to be eternal. And so it's like, I think Solomon is realizing that, from what he's saying is like, yeah, there's a time for all this, but then there's a time to be eternal. And that's, your fulfillment is to walk with God to your place of eternity, not to you do what you need to do while you're here, what God provides a time for you to do, but know that your place is with him in eternity. And so it's kind of like so many people, like you say, don't believe that or don't live that way. And but then you're not fulfilled because that's not what you were created for.
Right. And I think also what we see here is Solomon saying, yet man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning even to the end. It's like, well, he's told us the most important
Mhm.
work that, we need to know. There's a lot more that we don't know, but also I see Solomon's struggle here.
Mhm.
Like he's just going through the struggle of getting to God. Like, and he's bringing up all these things of like, and all the arguments of like, well, why would a loving God, no, no, no. And it's like, okay, can we just go back to the garden? And this is why these things happen. It's not because God, it's because us. Um,
And even though those things happen, I mean, if you go on up through Numbers and, Exodus and on up through, he tells you exactly how to do it. I mean, you look at Daniel and where Daniel came from and learning his scripture and how he was read the Bible and learned the Bible, so he tells you the steps to keep yourself in that place. So
mm-hmm.
he gives you the outline and
Yeah,
guides you and leads you. It's just your flesh, it's fighting the flesh, which is what was
yeah,
true then is still true today.
yeah. No, totally. And you see Solomon's struggle. It's like
100%, yes.
it's this whole thing, and we've got 12 chapters of it. And he's got and he gets to like these the truth. But it's like he's writing out the whole struggle of
And it's so relevant, which makes it so good.
right, exactly. Like, woo. So, I just have, he has made everything appropriate in its time and has set eternity in their heart because that gets down to the truth of it. He makes everything beautiful in its time. So, right now, not everything, it's not beautiful. But in its time, it will be in eternity.
Mhm.
Um, so, I know that there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and to do good in one's lifetime. Moreover, that every man who eats and drinks and sees good in all his labor, it is the gift of God. I know that everything God does will remain forever. There is nothing to add to it, and there is nothing to take from it. For God has so worked that men should fear him. That which is been already and that which will be has already been, for God seeks what has passed by. Insight.
I mean, kind of what we already talked about, just to receive life as a gift from God. I mean, looking at it as,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just,
Yes.
Nothing to add to it and nothing to take from
Yep.
it.
Um, yes. And it's so I'm ooh, there is so much in here. And yeah, we could cross reference with Revelation. Don't add to his word, don't take away from it. You don't need to add to anything that God's done. You don't need to take away from it. Um,
You are not God.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Kind of back to a previous conversation. It's like, don't need to add to it, don't need to take from
Yes, exactly. And so we see like this there's nothing better to rejoice and to do good in one's lifetime. Moreover, that every man who eats and drinks and sees good in all his labor, it is the gift of God. So that contentment, that peace, that joy, um, that's from God. Um, so, and he says, for God has so worked that men should fear him. And so that was my uh, paragraph theme, because then that works down into the next paragraph. Furthermore, I have seen under the sun that in the place of justice there is wickedness, and in the place of righteousness there is wickedness. And I said to myself, God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man, for a time for every matter and for every deed is there. I said to myself concerning the sons of men, God has surely tested them in order for them to see that they are but beasts. For the fate of the sons of men and the fate of beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. Indeed, they all have the same breath, and there is no advantage for man over beast, for all is vanity. All go to the same place. All come from the dust, and all return to the dust. Who knows what the breath of man ascends upward and the breath of the beast descends downward to the earth? I have seen that nothing is better than that man should be happy in his activities, for that is his lot. For who will bring him to see what will occur after him? Insight.
it. I mean, there is a lot here. I mean, back to trusting God's future judgment. I mean, it's like so hard. It's so easy for us to want to judge. And just trusting God's future judgment with what you know, what he deems to be judged, I'm guessing. The funny thing is like, well, I put a question mark by who knows the breath of man ascends upward or the breath of beast ascends downward to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, I mean, I put a question mark to ask you about that. Well, but for the whole thing, I just kind of put, you know, before we
Yeah.
get to that, but you
No.
cannot, life is not about controlling time, but trusting the one who does. It's kind of the way I got. You just got to trust in God on things that you don't understand or don't get. But the whole breath of man ascending upward and downward kind of, and beast downward kind of.
Yeah. So this whole thing, it's kind of like, okay, now we've taken a dip. Like, now we're back to Solomon's thinking as far as, well, I mean, the same thing happens. Man dies, beasts die. What's the difference? It's like,
Okay.
okay. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay. So there, and yes, both of us do have the breath, like God breathed into the nostril, like he gave beasts the breath of life and us the breath of life. But there are distinct differences. Like whenever he created the beast, he said that it's good, but with man, he said it's very good, and we're created in his image. Um, and so now we have Solomon back to his own thoughts, and basically just like, okay, well, and so now we've kind of had like this downward turn.
The
Uh,
wickedness, yeah, exists where justice should. I mean, that's every day or every day everywhere right now.
yes.
And back then, I mean, that's just But it is disheartening.
Yes. Um, so I mean, there's kind of a lot of parallel. So yes, I mean, it's like he's going back to the disheartening things, but that's not something that, I mean, that's something that we chose in the garden.
Yeah.
And, people like to make the argument of like, well, I went there. And it's like, well, you would have done the same thing. So get over it. But, it's what we chose. And this is the, how it's playing out. And he's like, I said to myself, God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man, for a time for every matter and for every deed is there. And so, yes, that is going to happen. Like, nothing gets past God, it will all be judged. Um, but said, I said to myself concerning the sons of men, God has surely tested them in order for to see that they are but beasts. So there's kind of some parallels here. You could go the sons of men being non-believers, um, like going back to Genesis 6, the sons of God married the daughters of men. Believers married non-believers, and so it's kind of like they are, you know, like the beast. Like there's no, it's not a good attorney. I mean, you could go with that, or you could go with Solomon is like just this is a downward turn, or he's just like looking at like we all have the same fate, we all die, and so like um,
You're gonna get judged either way.
like yeah, I mean
I'm
he's
still trying to.
hmm?
So I'm still trying to get my dog to heaven. So I was hoping that that meant that our dogs are going to go to heaven. I'm just kidding.
Actually, JD actually talked about that, and it was
Did he? What did he say?
it's so funny because he was like, and I was like, it's actually kind of a good argument because I'm just kind of like, there are people who don't want to go unless their dogs go, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what's wrong with you, but yeah, but you know, he did say if God, I thought this was a really good argument, and but I'm neither here nor there. I'm not gonna say either way because there's good arguments from Scripture on both sides of it. But he said if God was not willing to withhold His only Son from you, why would He withhold your pets? I was like, that's a good argument. That's
I
a
like
good
that one.
but you know and honestly, it was somebody asked him what would their pets be raptured.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, and I was like, I mean, yeah. So
The I mean, I just go back to in where he talks about, I don't remember if it's Daniel or Revelation, but about where we are going to be living with the beast and we're all going to be happy together and hanging out with the turtles and so I keep thinking my dog has to be there, right?
well, I mean,
I know. I mean, it's
yeah, I don't I'm neither here nor there on it as far as like
yeah.
I'm kind of this is one of those we'll find out when we get there.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, yeah, there's animals in the millennial reign. The lion shall lay down with the lamb. The child shall play with the puff adder.
Exactly.
Um, we obviously ride out of heaven on white horses. So there, I mean, there's like I said, there's arguments either way. But yeah, you when you were talking, this came to mind, and this was actually out of it was the um, kind of the testimony part of JD's sermon last week, but somebody had wrote in and was talking about the do over that we get in the millennial reign. Like, just like with each other, and because we're not living in the flesh and things like that, we have our new bodies. And she called it like the great do-over. And I
Mm.
was like, oh, like, millennial reign, we wonder like what, why, like why can't it just all be over with? And it's like, well, he has three covenants that he has to keep with Israel. But also I thought that she had great insight to the do-over, like, because we're all going to be in the millennial reign, and so for us it will be like it was supposed to be in Eden.
That's so cool.
And I was like, oh, that's good.
That
That's
is good. Yeah.
so yeah. Back to Solomon, and the beasts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, he's just kind of, in some ways, like, man is not comparable to beast. I mean, we're given intelligence. We're made in the image of God. Yes, our bodies, same thing that happens, to the beast happens to us as far as bodies, but I don't see in scripture where we're told that our dogs will be resurrected with us.
Yeah. Doesn't say they won't, but it doesn't say they will. I don't,
Like, and that is definitely something. The first and the second resurrection, blessed is he who is part of the first resurrection. We are resurrected.
yeah.
Everybody. Everybody that has ever walked this earth will have a bodily resurrection. As we see in Daniel, it is some to everlasting joy and some to everlasting contempt. First resurrection, everlasting joy. Second resurrection, everlasting contempt. So while the same thing happens to our bodies, um, comp- that should be the only comparison.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, uh, this is the main truth. God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man. So through all of Solomon's little musings, um, that's the main truth. So we see that, okay, there is an appointed time for everything. He has made everything appropriate in its time and has set eternity in their heart. For God is so worked that men should fear him, and God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man. And then there is a time for every matter and for every deed. Um, I think need to cut that off more. But there's a time for every matter and for every deed. There is, I think I was supposed to say a time to, where did I pull that from? Who knows? But I mean, you get the gist
Right
of
there. Go back up.
whoop.
Time for matter and time for everybody to go down just a little bit. Couple more. You're almost there. Go down. I'm off here. I think it's like number 17, line 17.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Yes. Oh, and for every deed is there. Okay, that's why.
Okay.
I was like, that doesn't make sense. But anyway, um, oh, for every deed is there, like it's recorded.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't, whenever, yeah.
I
Um,
got you.
yeah. So it's kind of like, if you start looking at this, vanity of vanities, or you could say all is vanity. Um, then I hated the fruit of my labor. There's a time for every matter and for every deed is there. Like every deed is recorded. There, you start looking at the literary flow of the truth coming out of it.
Mm.
So then, then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun, and behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed, and that they had no one to comfort them. And on the side of their oppressors was power, but they had no one to comfort them. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead more than the living who are still living. But better off than both of them is the one who has never existed, who has never seen the evil activity that is done under the sun. Insights.
Wow. Um, so this is just like pure anguish, but now he's looking at society. He's kind of transitioned from,
Yep.
over to society now from man to,
Hmm.
so oppression, tears, power in the hands of the oppressor. I mean, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of going back into, so if you look at one, it's like life is cyclical, and the works of man are striving after the wind. I magnified and increased in wisdom. Like I had my wisdom, I had my fame, and then I did all these things. I have the fruit of the labor, and then he gets to, um, the wise man and the fool die alike. And then what does a man get in all his labor, and he sees things happening, like you work all your life and then it's left to this guy over here who might squander it all. And then who can eat and have an enjoyment without him? And then he goes back to everything's cyclical, it's just mundane, whatever. And then we get into, he does pop in this truth, with everything is appropriate in its time, and he set eternity in their heart, and that God is so work that men should fear him. Um, but also in this, he starts talking again, when he makes that comparison. The wise man and the fool die alike. The same things happen to them bodily. And then the comparison of man and beast, the same thing happens to him bodily. And then in four, now he's getting back into like money, and the love of money is the root of all evil. And what are the evils that are coming from the love of money? The labors. And so we see here, well, because of the love of money, that there's people that are being oppressed, and that there's no one to comfort them. Like he's seeing that the evil of worldly labors. So that's gonna be, um, the subject here. So, but I mean, do they really have no one to comfort them?
I mean, they do.
Yeah,
They just,
yeah. I think that, I mean, he's in his kind of at a low, because it's like, okay, he's looking at all these earthly things that go on because of man's sin, because of the love of money, that we have people in power oppressing people, and that there just seems to be no help for any of it. And he's just like, well, it's just better off if nobody, that they were never born.
it's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that's pretty bad if you're going to that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, Job got there like towards the end of his suffering. Like he was just like, it would just been better if I was never born, like,
I can
um,
see it from Job.
yeah. I mean, it's like, and Jesus only said that, he said that about Judas. It would have been better if he was never born.
Oh, Judas.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I mean, this is at a low, and it's like, okay, really? So I just have, but they have no one to comfort them. But they had no one to comfort them, and then He says, I have seen every labor and every skill which is done is the result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. This too is vanity and striving after the wind. The fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. The handful or one handful of rest is better than two fists full of labor and striving after the wind. Insights.
So I guess this is our first mention of him saying anything is better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, we're going back up the hill now. Um, First mention of contentment. But yeah, I think he's just saying that, anything that's envy driven ambition,
Yep.
is not contentment.
Yeah, and so that's part of it with our labors. So um we see that people commit acts of oppression, and um and then also the rivalry and the envy and um the things that come from that. um so and it's
Everything outside of, I mean, that envy, rivalry, all of that is just so outside of God's word.
right.
It's just leads you down that path of, coveting your neighbor. I mean, all the things of I want more than they have, or I want, so back to the eyes again. So it's just,
Yes. Yes, and so the love of money is the root of all evil. And so it's not having money is the root of all evil, it's the love of money. And so the love of money, people commit acts of oppression and people are oppressed, and it seems like there's no help for them. And then we see that because of the love of money that we have envy and strife, and that everybody's trying to one up each other or get something, and nobody's happy for the other guy that has more. It's always like, oh, that, um, it's just like, ugh. Um, it's just ugginess. So one handful of rest is better than two fists full of labor. Um, and so then I looked again at vanity under the sun, and there was a certain man without a dependent, having neither a son nor a brother. Yet there was no end to all his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with riches, and he never asked, and for whom am I laboring and depriving myself of pleasure? This too is vanity, and it is a grievous task. Um, Insight.
so this was interesting to me. Um, so work kind of loses its meaning when it's pursued without people to love or to enjoy it with. So you're kind of looking at relationships here is the way I took it. Um, to end all his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with the riches he had never asked. For whom am I laboring?
Mm-hmm.
So, but then I thought about Solomon and his 1,000 wives. Like, does this fool not have relationships in his life? I mean, it's like,
This is full not have relationships.
I mean, but then, okay, so then I came back to my okay, and then it's like, so many of his relationships were political alliances. So many of his relationships were foreign women. So many of his relationships were hollow and shallow because he was wise and had some money and probably somebody giving their daughter to somebody, whatever it was. And I don't, that's not biblical. That was just kind of my thinking. It doesn't specifically say that, but I mean, those are probably empty relationships, right? Because you look at his dad, David. And even though David kind of was along the same path, he loved so fully. His heart was so full of love for Jonathan, for his wife, for he just had a heart after love.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really go into a lot of Solomon's relationships. So for him to say, I don't know, I went down a path with this, but for him to say, that everything kind of loses its meaning without relationships, I think he's speaking from his soul.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he just probably did not have a deep, I feel like maybe he just didn't have a deep, meaningful relationship, even with his kids, because he had so many of them, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it does trickle down. Like, if you look up here, it's like the love of money is the root of all evil. And so it's like because, oppressors want power and money and whatever, it's like they oppress people because it's the love of money is the root of all evil. It's because they want the power, which it's the money, and they think that's it. And so they do these things. And then it's
How,
like,
yes, yes.
and so then the relationship of the envy and the strife between neighbors, like as far as rivalry, as far as like things and money, things you can't take with you. And then we see, like then you have the guy that's like he didn't even have an heir to leave it to. He's just like filling this hole and this void with just more and more and more.
Mhm.
And so I think you're hitting on something here because then he goes down into two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if
Mhm.
either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is not one another, or there's not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? And if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. A cord of three strands is not quickly torn apart.
Yeah, maybe I got ahead of myself, but yeah, that whole little thing, I just kind of went back to maybe he's grieving because his relationships are truly a gift from God. I mean, when you have the right people in your life, they're usually brought together by God, I feel like. And maybe he's grieving not having one of those soul relationships. I don't know, but
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like if you look at, um, because of love of money and pursuing things that aren't godly, you get all this. But in a godly relationship, oh my gosh,
but that
I
was
thought
mine.
no, and I have all of this turned off on my phone, but they override it.
Well, if you
So
go back to 1 Kings and it talks about the political alliances that, were part of his relationships. And um, so it does mention that it is kind of biblical about, so I just feel like his relationships were probably hollow.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah,
Maybe. I mean, again, that's me and just kind of reading.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, it gets down to this is biblical relationship. Like he's
Right.
like we have like the whole like unbiblical love of money, striving after the wind, vanity under the sun, and this is what happens because we're laboring for this. But then a biblical relationship, if the other one falls, the other one's going to lift up his companion. There is no strife, there is no envy, there is no like,
Jonathan and David.
right. And then if two lie down together, they keep warm, but how can one be warm alone? And so who would lie down together? A husband and a wife. And if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. And so then we get to, just kind of strengthen numbers, so to speak. But then a cord of three strands is not quickly torn apart. So who's the third strand? Because he keeps talking about two, two, two. Then who's
God.
the three? God.
God. Yeah, you have to have God in your relationship.
Yes. Yes.
Which, yeah.
Yes. And I mean, you can even like bring spiritual warfare. I mean, you could totally go into marriage here because who lies down together? Two, if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. I
Yep.
mean, spiritual warfare,
Yep.
you know? It's like one's getting kicked in by the enemy, the other one can rise up and say, yeah, no. But a cord of three strands is not quickly torn apart. So if you have God at the center of a relationship, then these things up here don't happen, but these things, these good things here do happen. So I have a cord of three strands is not quickly torn apart.
Yep.
Um,
100%.
yeah, and I mean, I had this funny thing happen. I mean, it was like, one of these stupid situations, but, you know, somebody was like basically saying that they thought that our family like got together and talked about things before we like talked to other people, like had conversations with like other people. It was like called a conspiracy, so to speak. And it's like, no, like we actually can converse with other people and agree because we have God at the center of everything. We have a godly worldview. So the same thing that comes out of me is going to come out of my husband is going to come out of my son, and vice versa. It's like because we have the same worldview. It's not a conspiracy of, you know,
That's a good point.
it's just the truth. I mean, you
Yep.
know. So it's like that's what that is. Just saying. So then here's Solomon back down to some. It says a poor yet wise lad is better than an old and foolish king who no longer knows how to receive instruction. For he has come out of prison to become king, even though he was born poor in his kingdom. I have seen all the living under the sun throng to the side of the second lad who replaces him. There is no end to all the people, to all who were before them, and even the ones who will come later will not be happy with him. For this too is vanity and striving after the wind.
Well, he's really on a downer.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
He's having a really bad day.
well, I mean, and it's like there's like this big truth statement: a poor yet wise lad is better than an old and foolish king.
Yeah.
It's like who's the old yet Solomon? Yeah. And then but then it's like, and then he starts talking about the fame. It's like he was known throughout the world. And what happens with that? It goes
Doesn't
away.
matter.
Yeah. It's
I
like
mean,
you get replaced. People, you know, people forget. Nobody
and
cares.
yeah, I mean, it's like I can remember in corporate world where you're told it doesn't really matter because as soon as you quit somebody will be doing your job the next day.
Hmm.
So it just kind of kept you humbled to go, okay, I'm doing God's work, and I'm not doing this for anybody else because it doesn't even though all the accolades you get, all of the promotions, all of the whatever, it 3 months after you're gone, nobody even remembered who you were.
Right.
No matter what good, and unless there's, I don't know, but then, no matter what good you did or so, and then the bad, there's always somebody who's going to do something worse to where they become the, topic of gossip around the water cooler. But I mean, I totally understand what he's saying. And I think that's such a reflection and then you look at some of these Hollywood actors who, they get in their 80s and 90s, and, they try to go on tour and sing. You know? I mean, like, who did I see the other day where I'm like, that poor dude's not going to make it off the stage. It's like, they try to still keep up with what the young people are doing, and it's just not, it's just different. And you always hear your grandmother say, well, back in my day, things were different. So it's like, I
Hmm.
totally understand where he's coming from. And it's just, you know, it's just striving after the win.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Like,
Temporary.
yeah, and we were talking about this before, like with social media and stuff like that, how everybody just like keeps upping their game to get more attention and more likes and more this, and it can even be I mean, we can look at the overt stuff, but then the covert stuff, the look at me, I'm so good and I'm so sweet and I'm so wholesome and da 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 da. But it just keeps like, they keep feeding that and keep feeding pride.
Mhm. Right. Yep.
And it's like,
What's
um,
what's your reason for doing that? Is it to
yeah,
further God's kingdom or is it for you?
exactly. Exactly. It's a look at me, look at me, look at me. Instead of look at God, look at God, look at God. And that fame, that like, that whatever, that whatever it is, it's like that is fleeting because I guarantee you they're gonna find somebody else that they like better. Um, what you did before, and it's like you said with any. I mean, it's like, yeah,
It's fleeting, but I think it's one of Satan's most powerful tools to further you away from God
mm-hmm,
and more into yourself. But it's fleeting. I mean, and the thing is, they always say the higher you up, the harder you fall, or whatever that saying is. And so the more you're given and and the more you try to chase it and the higher you bump yourself up to, as soon as your fall comes, the harder it is because you were doing it for yourself and now there's nobody around because nobody cares anymore.
right,
You know,
yeah,
you're
exactly.
not falling into the arms of Jesus. Sold your soul. So
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely he's kind of his writing. So Hebrew writing is very cyclical. It comes back on itself as far as like the subjects, and yeah, I mean he's just going through like all of these things. All of these earthly things are just futile, and it's all the things that he did. So chapter 5. Oh, so I just have vanity under the sun because all the subjects that he's bringing up, except for this, a cord of three strands is not quickly torn apart. It's like all the rest of this is futility and vanity. Um,
yep.
yeah. So guard your. This is so good, and I didn't get to do the paragraph themes and the chapter theme yet. I just didn't pull it out because I listened to Farag, and that was about 3.5 hours because it took like 3 sermons to cover these 3 chapters. Actually, it was 3.5 sermons, and so um, but this is so good. And I started working on this, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't know what to pull out. Maybe it will come as we're going through this. But guard your steps as you go to the house of God. Draw near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know they are doing evil. Do not be hasty in word or impulsive in thought to bring up a matter in the presence of God. For God is in heaven and you are on the earth. Therefore, let your words be few. For the dream comes through much effort, and the voice of a fool through many words.
So he's going back to God now.
Mm-hmm.
Had his dip down. And so now he's getting back to talking about God, which is good because this is the total temple language. I mean, he built the temple. So, right. So he back to his wisdom of knowing the worship and how to approach God as holy and how to truly worship um, is real good. So I looked at so God in heaven means he's exalted. I'm trying to think of the word. And then fools, okay, rather than offer a sacrifice of fools, they do not know they are doing evil. So I kind of got out. I was going to go more down the rabbit hole and I kind of ran out of time. I was not good at doing my homework this week, but I did kind of go through my chapters. But so sacrifice of fools, going back to, your heart not being right. Um, coming to sacrifice, but yet your heart's not right, trying to appease God without a right heart. I'm saying that backwards, but you know what I mean. So that was real good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Saul,
So he knows
when
your
he,
heart more than your words, basically.
yeah, obedience is better than sacrifice. Like,
Correct.
whenever,
Yes.
I mean, that's, Saul. It's like
Oh,
all of
yeah.
its words, like what was coming out of his mouth. And I mean, it's like, oh my gosh. And then, but what, what he did, um, so I mean, this was really good. And I really enjoyed the sermon that I listened to on this because I mean basically he's like you have one mouth and two ears.
I'll have to go back and listen to it. I like to pop into Barack sometimes and listen. They're real good.
And I mean this was really I my mind went into when Jesus was talking about just like the repetitive prayer and all and the rote kind of ritual kind of prayer and stuff like that. And I think, Farag was saying, prayer is, it's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. And I think this really speaks to listening to God and His word rather than just like um, running your mouth.
Yeah. Listen.
Basically, yeah, out of pride. It's really just pride and being a fool. Um,
Cool. Yep. And, you know, hearts more than words because it's like you need to go to him with with a true heart, a heart after God's, and not just selfish heart. You know,
mhm.
you've got to know how to approach him. You've got to treat him as holy, not as your genie in the bottle. And just, it really goes kind of back to how to worship.
Right. Um, exactly. Like, yeah. Um,
And obedience.
obe-
Yeah.
obedience is better than sacrifice. And how do you get to obedience? By listening. And to listen is to obey. Like, whenever you say listen, it's not a just hear it, it's it's heed it. Um, and so, I mean, there's a lot here. It's a humbleness towards God. Um, and so, I mean, this is like okay. Now we're back. We're cooking with peanut oil now, Solomon. Um, so yeah, I mean, he has like these little earthly things in there, the humanity type musings and questions and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, yeah, Solomon, God didn't task men with this, we just did it to ourselves. But then he gets back on to the truth here.
Mhm.
So then, when you make a vow to God, do not be late in paying it, for he takes no delight in fools. Pay what you vow. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. Do not let your speech cause you to sin, and do not say in the presence of the messenger of God that it was a mistake. Why should God be angry on account of your voice and destroy the work of your hands? For in many dreams and in many words there is emptiness. Rather, fear God.
Yeah. Obedience.
Mm-hmm.
Don't, yeah, don't use them as your genie in the bottle and say, well, if you do this, I'll do this. And
Yes.
the whole just being silly. I saw, I don't remember years ago, a sermon on just, not to be, just don't be silly with God. It's not, some people just get kind of silly. And um, Solomon's hitting the nail right on the head, say what
Yeah.
you mean what you say. And
Mm-hmm.
stick true to his word and
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of it's everything that David told him to do is coming home to roost.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
even that
100%. Yeah.
and even that God told him, like if you obey me, and it's all coming home to roost. Obedience is better than sacrifice.
Many
And
dreams, many words. There's emptiness. Yeah, you have all these dreams of grandeur and whatever, but then it takes you right back to emptiness again. So, fear God, praise Him, stay true,
yes,
trust. Yeah.
yes. And honestly, it's how you're never gonna be able to listen to God if you're talking. Like, you know, you have to seek him, you have to get with him, and you just have to be quiet.
Be still.
He already knows what the problem is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying like you can't talk to him like you would a friend or whatever, because he knows that you just got to get it all out. But at the same time, you can't just sit there and just, like you said, treat him like your genie in a bottle. It's like, okay, now that you got it all out, can I speak? And
Mhm.
that's where you get to the crux of things.
When you look back at Hannah's prayer, or you look back at David's prayer, David's praying, and you kind of go back and look at some of those amazing prayers from the Old Testament, and it's very eye-opening as to how you go before and how you talk and how you present them. And yeah, no, you definitely should have a relationship with Jesus as your intercessor and talking. And, sometimes I'll talk to him throughout the day just because I need to. I mean, we're trying to get everything working the same direction. And sometimes you just got to take a break and have a little chat with Jesus. That's totally fine. But it's
Mhm.
like, don't be silly. Don't get silly with it. And, hold it in the reverence and the holiness that it is. So it's, that's just kind of my train of thought.
Right,
But yeah, looking at some of those prayers from David and Hannah and some of the other, in the Old Testament, is amazing.
right. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too is, you know, like whenever somebody does pray, when a prayer is recorded, I think that we should look at that and see, like, okay, what are they saying? They're praising God, number
Mhm.
one. So I think um listen. And how do we listen? God speaks through his word.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, so I pulled out of here, and this is just how I do this. I just, you're supposed to put the verse number so you know where you got it from, but I don't do that. But this is how I do this. I pull it out. I might rearrange things a little bit or whatever to make it flow better. Um, but this is how I get to, I'm like, what's the crux of it? What's the main thing, um, of what he's saying? And so I pull it right out of scripture. Um,
Yep. Draw near, fear
mhm,
God, praise God, obey God. It's kind of what that means.
mhm, yeah, yeah. Have a reverence for God. It's
Hmm.
not
Yep.
a like crumble in fear. It's have a reverence for Him.
Correct. Yep.
Um, and I really, honestly, I remember in Solomon. Like I said, this is so human. Because he's seeing these things that, yes, he's saying that these things are futile because this is what life is like under the sun. It's cyclical, nothing's fair, and things like that. But you see all of these things, and we're like, you know, look at all these unfair things, and why would God do this? And this is the, futile thing that God has tasked men with, or whatever, and we blame God and we do this. But I see Solomon getting to the same point that I did whenever I was kind of going through all of this and before I got to a biblical worldview of, I just got to this point where I was like, you know what, he's God and he can do what he wants. and it was a reverence of he's God and I'm not.
Hmm.
And it's, I mean, his ways are above our ways. And then when I got to a biblical worldview, it things toned down, as far as, it's like, yeah, I mean, I have a reverence for him. Like, that reverence started coming, like he's God and I'm not. And then I got to a biblical worldview and realized that, it's not God doing all this.
Yeah.
Um, the whole, like, life's unfair thing is because we made it unfair. And really, it's, God, he came in and was like, okay, I'm going to take care of all this. So he made it fair. It's just we're too dumb to see. Um, so if you see oppression of the poor and denial of justice and righteousness in the province, do not be shocked at the sight. For one official watches over another official, and there are higher officials over them. After all, a king who cultivates the field is an advantage to the land. Insights.
Hmm. Um, oh my gosh, there's so many things. So many.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when he says, okay, so when he says, after all, king, oh, so one of there are higher officials over them. So corruption is he's saying corruption comes from the top, but when he goes from higher, I don't know if he's referring to the spiritual warfare, if he's going that high, or if he's just referring to the corruption coming from, you know, supervisors or whoever who are oppressing these people. So I mean, I would go to spiritual warfare. I mean, surely if he is fully aware of spiritual warfare, being where he's been and as wise as he is.
Yeah. Well, and also, it's like everybody's going to have to answer to the same person at the end.
Yeah.
So there's that. Um, and he's saying, like, don't be shocked because,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there's a lot here because there's the whole hierarchy, right? As
Hmm.
far as, um, as far as the corruption and things like that. And the government is corrupt. And, when they oppress people, the people become dependent on the government, but the government's also dependent on the people they're oppressing as their workers, as their slaves, as whatever. But then also, like, don't be shocked at it and don't be dismayed because there is a higher judge.
Yes. Okay, so I see where so I was taking it, I kind of misread it, but yeah, it's nothing new under the sun.
No.
It's just been going on for people are going to take advantage of people, and that's what's happening here. And yes, they will be judged.
Yes.
And yeah, you're right. Don't be, I mean, he's right. Don't be shocked because if you can't see it in front of your face, then you're obviously living under a rock.
Hmm. Yeah. And then he goes into, he who loves many will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves abundance with its income. This too is vanity. When good things increase, those who consume them increase. So, what is the advantage to their owners except to look on? The sleep of the working man is pleasant, whether he eats little or much, but the full stomach of the rich man does not allow him to sleep. Um, so now he's going back into the problems of the love of money.
Yeah.
Um, so, but he's going more in depth to the internal problems of the love of money. So, the love of money, you oppress people. He's like, okay, so don't worry about that injustice because that's going to be taken care of. But, so what is he talking about here?
There's never enough. I mean, it's
Yes.
like, yeah, you're just kind of like we've talked about in the past or earlier. It's just you're going to keep chasing the high of, more and more and more, or, keeping up with the Joneses or what. There's just never, you're without the internal satisfaction, you just are never satisfied with what life has given. You want more, 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 more. And you're not living for, to further God's kingdom. You're living to further yourself. And that you just will never be satisfied doing that.
Right.
And yeah, you're gonna, and then whoever you step on or whatever sins you commit or whatever, however you sell your soul to achieve what it is you're trying to sell, sleeping of a working man is pleasant. But the full stomach of a rich man does not allow him to sleep because I mean you're just your whole your whole demeanor is doing something against God's will, and that I mean no matter who you talk to that's kind of been in that situation, the unrest and the uneasiness of your life when you're so going against God's will is just mind-blowing.
Mhm.
So that statement is exactly what that's saying. You just can't, you're not fully, at peace with doing that,
Right.
for lack
And
of a better word.
yeah, and I mean, so the poor, the oppressed poor, no problem.
Yeah.
But the one who is doing it, problem. I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, he's going against God's Solomon. Yeah, okay. Anyway, talking about himself here. Um so yeah, it's just this whole like you see like this cascade of the whole thing. So then there is a grievous evil which I have seen under the sun, riches being hoarded by their owner to his hurt. When those riches were lost through a bad investment, and he had fathered a son, then there was nothing to support him. And as he had come naked from his mother's womb, so he will return as he came. He will take nothing from the fruit of his labor that he can carry in his hand. This is also a grievous evil. Exactly as a man is born, thus he will die. So, what is the advantage to him who toils for the wind? Throughout his life, he also eats in darkness with great vexation, sickness, and anger.
I'm going with stress. I mean, that sounds exactly like somebody who was completely stressed out because they're, you know, giving up their relationships, they're having girlfriends, they're, cheating on their way. I don't know. I see this as, yeah, I mean, what stress does to your body is just unbelievable. But yeah, that's because you're, I don't know, you're just not. I mean, you can't take anything with you. So it's like you're doing all this for what? Except people. You can take people with you. So you're doing all this for what?
Mhm.
And then it goes back to me thinking about, yeah, okay, so we all try want to leave something for our kids, and I get that, and whatever. But did he not? I just feel like he didn't like any of his kids. I don't know.
Well, we only hear about the one son, Rehoboam.
And
But
then I haven't read ahead, so I don't know. I don't know. I know that it does not end well with his kids that end up taking over his reign. So it's like I feel like he knows this too, that this is coming. But he's told this, right, from God that this is coming. And so I feel like he's kind of like I don't know. My brain's going cuckoo, but I just feel like he sees the evil of his way. I mean, I feel like he's talking about himself.
yeah, definitely he did use slave labor and building things. And then I mean he's also like looking outside because obviously he left stuff to Rehoboam, but so he does see things where people have amassed wealth and like have no one to leave it to. Um, but this down here, he eats in darkness with great vexation, sickness, and anger. Um, and Timothy, the love of all money is the root of evil. Um, and those who seek after it will pierce themselves with sorrows. Um, and so, I mean, there is, I'm sorry.
I know, so it just eats at your soul. I mean, it's just that living a life like that,
Yeah,
if you have one left, unless you've sold it to get where you need to be. You know what I mean? It just eats at your life.
right. And I mean, you can't take it with you,
Mm.
um, in spite of what the Egyptians say. But yeah, like
You're constantly worried about who's going to try to take your stuff. You're constantly, you know what I mean? It's like you screwed somebody else over, so you're worried about who's going to screw you. It's just, it's ugh. It's all ugh.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a good explanation for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, anytime you start striving after the works of this world, it's just, that's what Solomon's saying. It's futility. It's vanity. I never could understand like whenever we read Story of the World, and it's like like somebody would be, become king, and then it's like, well, then he got knocked off, and I mean, it's like, why would you want to be king? It's like this does not sound fun, but it was just like the striving after the power and the riches and the money, and it's just this, for lack of a better term, this dog eat dog, and it's like, why would you want to live in that? There's a much better way. Um,
Amen.
yeah, and I mean, it's like there's always the um, whatever it is, striving after riches, striving after fame, striving after power, um, you never attain. You
You
never attain.
don't. Endless pursuit.
Exactly. So yes, it's let's see. And so here is what I have seen to be good and fitting: to eat, to drink, and enjoy oneself in all one's labor in which he toils under the sun during the few years of his life which God has given him, for this is his reward. Furthermore, as for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, he has also empowered him to eat from them, and to receive his reward and rejoice in his labor. This is the gift of God. For he will not often consider the years of his life, because God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart.
Yeah, that's kind of the best line of all.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like you're saying, you just go through life with a peace and a joy, letting life happen around you. And it's like you're full of the Holy Spirit, so you're being guided. And and you've got a gladness in your heart, even though that doesn't mean your life is easy or perfect or beautiful. I mean, there's still going to be sorrow and things that happen, but you just have a peace within you to know how to handle it. So it's 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 a good point to get to after eating in darkness with great vexation, sickness, and anger. Which one would you choose?
Right. Yeah, I mean, Farag was going a different direction with it, and I don't know if I agree with it yet because I haven't gotten to through chapter 6. But he was saying like it's kind of like Solomon is saying he was saying that Solomon is saying you only go around once, so enjoy it. And I was like, well, I don't know. I think that I'm seeing something different that I really want to kind of flesh it out more when we get into 6, just to see like the whole literary flow of how things are going. Um, but I think that this is the gift of God.
That's what I got too.
Yeah, and then like because God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart. Like he won't consider the years of his life because God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart. So it's like the fact that he's like talking about that, you know, seeing the gifts from God, I'm like, I don't really know if this is the, you only go around once. So,
Well, maybe, I mean, like verse 18, I mean, maybe you do reap the rewards if you're walking in step with God. So
yes.
going around once, doing God's work and walking in step with him is fine, but coming off of verse 17, that was a quick turn or a quick leap to make. But so I would agree with that if that's what you're doing, which he does say, which God has given him for this is his reward. Yeah. If you're walking with him.
Exactly. Like, that's the difference. Like, your labor, what you do each day, it's like, why are you doing it?
Right. Right.
Like, why are you doing it?
Yeah. And then, keeping him occupied with the gladness of his heart, it's like you don't dwell on the earthly things because you're full of the eternal things. So it's like that's the gift God gives you is like this is not my home. I'm just passing through. And so I don't it doesn't all really matter. You know, I mean, you know what I mean? It matters, your life matters, all that, but it doesn't, this is fleeting and I'm going to be where I'm supposed to be. And so I think that's kind of where God keeps you occupied and not so focused on the horrible things going on, but he keeps you occupied on doing his work and and furthering his kingdom and knowing that this is just we're gonna be living in a really, really awesome place. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I read it.
Yeah, I think
And not dwelling on the ugh, ugh.
well, and I think that we can it's God that gives us everything. Like what we have comes from God.
Yes.
And then so our works, if they're from God, then we can rest our head on our pillow at the end of the day. We can eat our dinner, we can, you know, have our meal, go to sleep, and everything's good. But if our works aren't from God, if we're just, you know, working in futility and striving after the wind, then
Mhm.
we can't rest our head on our pillow. And who cares what's on our plate because it's never enough.
Yeah. Yeah, the endless pursuit of what,
Hmm.
whatever it is. If it's not God, then it's it's not, it's worldly. So,
Exactly. And I think it's First John, or yeah, is it First John? The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life. Um, yeah. Hmm. Um, so yeah, I think that ends up um, chapter 5. I'll go back through when I do my homework for the next chapters and do these themes more. I'll kind of sit with them a little bit and see where this is going in 6. But next week is lesson 3, and it's chapters. I want to say it's 6. Yep, 6 through 8. Um, few cross references. It looks like. Um, so